you know anything about our show, George, you know that we love controversy.
Oh yeah. I mean, it stems a lot also from our personal conversations within our little group chat.
Our
Ooh,
very, very uncontroversial group chat
it's
conversations.
very
Oh
safe,
yeah, yeah. Super
Very,
safe space.
very PC.
way above board, you know.
Yeah. If you ever think our podcasting is offensive, our chat is very unoffensive. We get it all out and let it vent it all out on our podcast.
Because
Well,
you know
yeah.
what they say, better public than private, right?
They
Exactly.
they always say that.
They always say that, and we live by that. So, on
Yeah.
that note, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and manage a very PC chat. I'm your host. Don't mind the rest.
I am not your host, Team Wolverine.
And I'm the other guy, Mr. Crispy.
The other guy. You're the other guy. So, in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about great scenes in bad movies. But first, we're going to hit them with a current event.
As we all know, Mortal Kombat was rebooted not too long ago, 2 years ago. It was during the pandemic when it first came out on HBO Max. It did relatively well considering it went to streaming, so they are going to be doing a part two. And they just released information on a major casting, and it looks like Johnny Cage is most likely casted already, and it will be Carl Urban, more recently known, as one of the boys. What are you guys' thoughts on this casting and Carl Urban being Johnny Cage?
Huh. I mean, I really like Carl Urban. I don't think I've ever seen him in something where I didn't enjoy him specifically. Like even the worst movie, he still is a standout person. You know, he's a really good character actor.
Yeah.
You know, despite the fact that as of late he's been typecast as like this gruff person in
Grumpy.
movies. You know, yeah, grumpy, exactly. Like if anyone saw the TV show, was it Become Human or whatever, like with the android cops and stuff like that?
Mhm.
It's the same character. It's pretty much him and the boys, just he's a cop. Like, there's no difference really between the two of them. But he's good though. He everything he's in, he nails it. So I'm curious to see how he pull off action superstar actor martial artist. Why not?
He's got the range for it.
Yeah.
So this is a direct sequel to the last Mortal Kombat that came out, right?
Yes, because they hinted at it at the end with the
Yeah.
poster for Johnny Cage.
I'm kind of surprised it took this long, huh? Because like it's been like a good little gap since the last one came out, what, 3-4 years ago, maybe? felt like-
No, it's like true.
2020. It was
Yeah.
oh no, 21, because it was
Was it? Okay.
because it was during the pandemic when they decided they were going to release all the movies for that year on
That's
HBO
right.
Max.
That's right. Okay. So yeah, so it's enough time. I didn't love that one. I thought it was pretty cool. You know, it was entertaining. I didn't super love the movie. I know some people were like huge fans of it, so I'm not really that excited for the sequel, but I do like him. Him is Johnny. I think he'll be funny in the role. I will watch it because I just love the Mortal Kombat franchise that much. I haven't watched Mortal Kombat Annihilation one too many times. Even though, in my opinion, it's one of the worst movies ever. But yeah. How about you, Jose?
I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I did enjoy the last one. Is it a great movie? No, but it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I admit though, I have a bias because my favorite character is Scorpion, and it was Scorpion heavy, and I enjoyed the fight scenes, especially with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, which he absolutely obliterated Sub-Zero. I like to point that out in that match. But I also like Carl Urban overall. I can't say I picture him playing this role right now. And then they're obviously gonna have to get a body double for if they're gonna match the martial arts and do the split, unless Carl Urban, has some skills that we don't know about. So it's hard for me to picture him in the role, but I've seen him play so many different types of roles and different characters. Like George said, he's been more of the grumpy character, but I've seen him play eccentric characters before, loud characters, quiet characters, all these different types that I think he can pull it off from an acting perspective. I need to see it because I'm not visualizing it right now. But I think it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. He was the best part of the or at least one of the better parts, I guess, of that Star Trek reboot, the J.J.
As
Abrams
McCoy.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a great
Yeah.
McCoy. Yeah.
yeah. Which I didn't
Interesting.
think he necessarily would have been. You know what I mean? When I heard that casting, I was like, okay, I guess I could see it. He surprised me. He did a great job. That's why with him as Johnny Cage, I think it'll be fun. Like, okay, so it kind of gives you an idea of how he's gonna play it. It's like, okay, you're gonna go for that gruff, kind of grumpy Johnny Cage. I could see it, I guess.
I mean, what they could do is they might depending what time frame they do it, because I know in one of the newer Mortal Kombats you had an older, more mature Johnny Cage
Yeah.
in there who's been like through it, and he was not as arrogant and as much as an a-hole as his younger self, which he actually meets up with his younger self, so he gets to see how annoying he was when he was younger. But they might maybe go through that route where he's still Johnny Cage, but not as Johnny Cage as the originals.
Hmm. Was that in a
Yeah.
video game or was that in?
Yeah, the
Mhm.
most recent one, Mortal Kombat
Oh
11, they mess with time and the multiverse quite a bit in that game.
man, everybody
But
did it, huh? Everybody's
yeah,
touched the
yeah,
multiverse.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In all fairness, Mortal Kombat did do it before the MCU did it, because
Mm,
they've been tackling it probably since part 9.
nice.
Yeah, but if they go that approach, that could be very interesting. Having a more humbled Johnny Cage with an essence of arrogance,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because Carl
because
Urban
he's
still has that cockiness. Like he's
yeah,
gonna always
yeah.
have it.
We,
Yeah.
we see it with Butcher. There's still
Yeah.
that level of arrogance.
Getting to our main topic, let's talk about great scenes in bad movies. Can one great scene make you come back to a bad movie?
For me, no. It can make me come back to that scene. I can go
Yeah.
on YouTube and rewatch that scene and be like, oh, that
Yep.
was a badass scene. But one scene cannot make me come back to a bad movie. It might make me come back to a mediocre movie, something that's like teetering on might have been good, but not a bad movie.
Yeah, I think it depends on definitely on the viewer, because your level of what you think that bad movie is can make a world of difference. And we'll understand what I'm saying later as we get into our selections.
True. True.
Yeah, it's hard. If it's one scene in a bad movie, I'm definitely not coming back. But if you give me a handful of good scenes with the crappiest of scripts, then there's a good chance I still might buy the DVD.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's true.
Yeah.
moments can make a difference, but it may
Yeah.
not. It still won't save a story.
Yes. Yeah. I wrote that down YouTube. I said, nope, I'll just
Yeah,
YouTube it. Now,
yeah,
there's many bad movies that I'll go back to and rewatch that don't have any great scenes, but it's because like what we said, it's more like a comedy the way that I view them. All the bad ones that I go to don't have great scenes. They're just bad movies all the way through that they're so comical by their script, and how they're made. But if it's just one great scene, I tend to just YouTube them if depending on how many times I feel like watching them. Because if it's a bad movie, it's just I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to see that monstrosity because then I have to sit through like an hour just to watch something that could be 30 seconds or something that could be 5 minutes, and then it's right back to crap again. So no, I'm good. All right. So you guys ready to get into your first selection?
Let's do it.
All right, man. Who wants to start us off?
I feel like I got to tackle this one.
Okay.
All right, just
I
because
already hate it.
I know you will. I guarantee you and Dan will be against me. I guarantee when Marie watches this episode up in Canada, she will be against me.
Oh no.
Okay.
All
Oh
right.
no.
Because this is what sparked this whole episode right here. All right. Within our chat is talking
Me and
about
Jose are already disappointed
Yeah.
because we already know how this is
Yeah.
going.
and because I was saying it's all about perspective of the viewer. For me, the bad movie is always going to be Rogue One. And the defense against this movie is always going to be that one scene with Vader being a badass. That's always the defense. It's like this one scene is why this movie's great.
That's
Not
a
necessarily
lie.
not necessarily for me. I actually have a different scene of why this movie is not worth it for me, but I love this scene. And it's the scene on the beach with Donnie Yen walking through, just saying, I'm one with the Force. The Force is one with me. And there's something so special about that scene for me that it feels the most Star Wars out of the whole movie. because the Force is so important to that world. You know, even like when you watch the first Star Wars: A New Hope, you know, they say it, like, you know, the Force be with you and everything. Even like Han Solo, like as much as he doesn't believe or care, he says it, you know, because it means something in this universe. It's their way of faith, you know, it's their religion. And so in that moment, like I just loved how deep that meant to that character in that world. It's such a beautiful scene. Like it's so well shot, and it's like there's like you feel the tension of what he's going through, walking through it. And you know he's not gonna die yet, you, you know, but it's just so heartfelt, everything about it, and like his connection with his partner. I can admit that I love that moment so much as I don't like that movie.
So many things to unpack there. First, I'll focus on the scene, and then Jose, I'll let you get at him. But regarding that scene, so I agree with you. It's a beautiful scene. I actually felt like that scene wasn't necessarily so Star Wars-y, because the way that Donnie approaches the Force, where I'm one with the Force is with me. I've never seen a Jedi speak like that, and he took it felt more religious in a good way than the Jedi's ever presented it. And it was kind of a unique spin on how it was done. And you can tell that the character wasn't necessarily raised like a Jediling, because even his approach to it was more, you know, you hear Obi-Wan talk about how the Force balances life and everything, like when he's giving the conversation to Luke, but the way Donnie presents it, it felt different to me. But I love the fresh take that he had on it. That's what made Rogue One so refreshing to me, is because it didn't take what I typically expected. Like where episode 7, 8, and 9 went, you already knew what was coming. You already kind of felt what the characters were going to say, because I saw this in 4, 5, and 6. But to some extent, you gave me a watered down version of it. Rogue One was just very different, but I'll let Jose go.
Okay, first of all, I do agree that is a great scene. A great scene out of many good scenes in a
Great
good
scenes.
movie.
Yeah, it is.
Overall, for context for everyone here, pretty much everyone here at Nas believes that Rogue One is one of the better Star Wars movies overall. On par with some of the originals, better than the prequels, and better than the last 3 that we had gotten. And that's why we got into this debate, because George feels differently and absolutely hates the movie.
I think hate's
But
strong. Hate is strong because I love that scene, so I can't hate the movie. So
But focusing on that scene, Dan covered it beautifully, and George did also on what was one of the elements that makes this scene like so good. Because you see a little bit of that earlier in the movie when they first get introduced to him, where it's not the first time that he's saying like, "I'm one with the Force is with me." But throughout it, you as an audience member, you're kind of like his friend, where it's just like, okay, this guy's a zealot, like in a way. They're like, he believes it, he truly believes it, but is it actually working? And then when this scene happens and you see him crossing like through there and he's saying it, again, as the audience, you're kind of like his friend, where all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, maybe it is with him. Maybe there is something going on there. It's not just his belief. And you start to believe that about him. And I think that's what made that scene very powerful, because throughout it, like his friend didn't believe him, didn't take him serious. As an audience, you're not supposed to really take him serious with it. And then all of a sudden it's like, this may be real. And I think that hit really strong in that scene. So I definitely agree with the choice of that scene. Out of all the really good scenes in that movie.
Yeah.
there's 2 good scenes. There's 2 good scenes in that whole movie.
There's multiple. Everyone, if you haven't seen Rogue One, watch Rogue One.
Watch it, yeah. Watch it. Watch out.
Yeah.
And tell George why he's wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, I plan on making a whole dissertation of how this movie is actually bad, and then once you guys see that, you might change your feelings about the movie.
What, George? You didn't tell us you were getting into fiction writing.
I mean, why not? The whole story is.
Yeah. But I do want to touch on that, Jose, because you made a very interesting point where you said about how us, the audience, didn't necessarily believe that the Force was with him or not, right? That was always a question that we felt. And it always felt like with the way that episode 4 through 6 presented the Force, it always felt like you had to earn it, right? Like you had to go through the training in order to really tap into it. But in this one, it felt like it was a way of life, and it felt like a more Zen mentality with it. And that's what I really loved about it, because it felt like an everyday person can still tap into the Force. And when Obi-Wan says the Force is all around us, then we as regular people should also have, even if it's like everything's like a spectrum, we in ourselves should be able to tap into it to some extent. And that's what made Rogue One so cool, because we actually saw that. Before, it was like if you weren't trained by a Jedi, you had no hope at all of ever being able to touch the Force, or like it was a real thing. That's why it became so like mythic, and it became like a legend where people didn't know if they still really existed in episode 4. So interesting.
See, for me, I just real quick, I never felt that way. I think with A New Hope, they made it feel like the Force was on the side of good.
Mm-hmm.
So it always felt like if you were on the right path in general, then the Force was with you. You know what I mean? Because like Luke had no training, let's be real. He used the Force, you know. The Force was with all of them in some way, even with like I said, with Han Solo. Like the Force was on their side. That's what made it special for me. It's like it always felt like that.
But the Siths, who are technically not
They have the
good,
Force too.
according they
Yes,
also have the
yes,
Force.
yeah. But they just never say it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you never hear the Sith say, "Hey, may the Force be with you."
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
And
it's more
also with
like
you.
with them, it always felt like theft. You know, like they were stealing the Force. You know, while with the good guys, I felt like they were more part of it and using it.
The Jedi's, the good guys.
Exactly. I call that terrorism.
They are the good guys.
That's just what George Lucas told us, but okay.
Uh,
Next one.
I'm gonna go with my lower tier one here. It's not so much that this was a great scene; it was just a personally satisfying scene overall. So I understand if others don't agree with this, but I'm gonna go X-Men 3, the death of Cyclops. It's like- it's a great scene.
I know this. Jose
Yeah.
hated him some
Yeah.
Cyclops.
It's of course this has James Marsden and Famke Janssen in there, Jean Grey and Cyclops. And there's not too much to the scene. Cyclops is out at this rocky pier, getting all emotional and whiny like a little bitch. And then out of the water comes Jean Grey, and of course, he's infatuated with Jean Grey, so he lets his guard down. She ends up kissing him and pretty much disintegrating him right there on the spot where everyone Professor X feels it. They all come, and all that's left is glasses, and then no more Cyclops for the rest of the series. And oh my god, that was so satisfying at all. To give everyone some context, I really cannot stand. I have not been able to stand any iteration of Cyclops. So it's not a James Marsden problem. I actually like James Marsden as an actor and other roles that he's done. It's that character. I didn't like him in the comics. I didn't like him in the cartoons. I didn't like him in the movies. Every iteration of him is just like that goody two shoes, overly whiny. Like he's the type of guy who will snitch on someone like during class because they're looking at their phone instead of paying attention to the teacher. That's who Cyclops is that type of character. So he's always annoyed me. I'm Team Wolverine all the way, between them. So to see him go out like that where there's nothing left of him, right, it just warms my soul.
That's funny, man. I could see that. I don't have the same hatred for Cyclops, but he is like he reminds me of like a bad version of Captain America. You know what I mean? Like he always kind of felt like that. So the death didn't really necessarily do that for me. I just didn't like the movie in general. I just thought the movie was bad. I didn't mind him in the cartoon. Like I liked him. He was okay in the cartoon. But I'm totally Team Wolverine though as well. So yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
I still say maybe you got to read some more comic books. I'm not a Cyclops fan, but he has gotten better. I will say that as someone that you're supposed to hate, but hate for a good reason. I don't hate Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, so it's kind of hard for me to hate on the mentality. But man,
I think it's the mix of Boy Scout with the whining.
Yeah.
I think
I will
that's
say,
what's really...
with how you describe the scene, in all fairness, this is the woman he's supposed to marry. Let's just make that clear to people if you aren't aware of the relationship with him and Jean Grey.
Not
Wolverine is the
anymore.
guy who's trying to steal someone's girl. Let's just make that clear. As much as I love Wolverine, he's not the good guy in the situation. If you're a Cyclops and Wolverine comes in trying to steal your girl, come on, let's be real about this. Okay? You don't want to be disintegrated. And he's not infatuated. He loves this woman. You lose the woman of your life, you're gonna cry. If you don't cry, then you're the broken person. But in all fairness, I get it. They don't give you the best reason to like Cyclops. I
Yeah.
totally understand the sentiment when it
Yeah.
comes to the movie version of Cyclops.
That's what I'm saying.
As
They
Wolverine
didn't
said,
get. Yeah.
you're a dick.
Yeah. And he is, while trying to pretend that he's not. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have treated her better.
That's what I'm saying. If a man can steal your girl, she belongs to the streets. The word of
But
future.
he didn't. She still chose Cyclops.
There you go. So she doesn't belong to the
Yeah,
street. She
she
belongs to
chose
him.
to blow him up. No, I understand my bias. If that situation was someone other than Cyclops, I probably would empathize. But it's like ingrained in me at this point to dislike Cyclops. So there is no situation where I'm going to be on Cyclops' side.
Fair enough. All right. So I have a movie called Wanderlust. Have you guys heard that one?
Oh,
So
yeah, with the
it's got Paul Rudd
and
and it has Jennifer Aniston.
I think I know what scene you're going to be talking about.
Yeah,
It involves a
exactly.
mirror.
Yes. Yes. The movie itself is just not good. Like, I saw the whole thing. It's just not good at all. And it's like, it's both of them going on this retreat with like a bunch of swingers, and it's outside of his comfort zone. And, they're trying to spice up their relationship. So he's talking, so he's about to be in bed with this female. So he goes into the bathroom and he talks himself in his mirror, trying to psych himself up. And it's a comedy, the movie, but you just feel so bad for his character because he's a good guy and this lifestyle is just not built for him. So he's trying to talk himself into being the sexy, suave guy, which he's just not. And the way that the movie goes, his character, in my opinion, he just kind of done a little dirty. That's why I feel bad. That's why I just don't even really enjoy the movie. But the scene itself, Paul Rudd, he just does an entire improv scene where he's trying to talk himself up like he's gonna flirt with her. So he's looking at the mirror and he keeps repeating that line, "You're gonna want this dick." He's like, hey, you want this dick? And the way he says it, man, he's trying to talk sexy, looking at the mirror. And it's just like you're laughing your ass off because it's so clearly not sexy. And like it just reminds you how nerdy this guy is. And like maybe this was like the only sexual partner he's ever had in his life. And that reads. So it's so vulnerable. And you think, oh, this is going to be a train wreck. This is going to be a train wreck. And at the end of his speech, one of the other characters is just sitting in the doorway, just watching him. And he turns around and he's like, oh my God. Tries to play it off, but that scene is so hilarious. Like, I'll YouTube that scene sometimes when I want to just get a good laugh. But the movie itself, not as good.
The character went on like some porn site and like watched the scene and saw the line there. He was like, "Yeah, that one's gonna work."
Yeah.
You want this dick?
You want this dick?
That's me. Yeah.
And then even when he goes into the scene, into it, and he's there in bed with her, he's trying to say, and he's just like you thought, it just goes complete disaster. And she's even like, what? What are you talking about? Like, actually turns her off. A sex addict. Love it.
I can agree with that because honestly, when you said Wanderlust, that's the first scene that popped in my head. Do not ask me about any other scene in the movie because I don't remember anything else from the movie, but I clearly remember that scene.
Exactly, man. Hilarious. Paul Rudd at his finest. That's at his finest, man. Complete improv.
It's another one of those examples too of someone who's a great actor and is just no matter what piece of crap they're in, they're gonna shine no matter what. And that was one of those moments where like he's an actor who I feel relative to,
Hmm.
where I feel like, oh, that's me. It's the white version of me, but that's who I feel like in life.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like Paul Rudd in every movie. Like I've never talked to myself in the mirror like that, but I've definitely had that in my head where it's just like I'm not sexy. I don't think I can pull off sexy, but let's see if I can. We're gonna try this thing. We're gonna say some stuff, and let's hope it works out.
I've seen it in movies. I've seen people do it. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, you like it when I choke you. You like that?
You like that?
What are you saying?
Yeah.
Back to the head. Oh yeah, she likes that. She likes that.
She loves that. This is going so well.
This is the good stuff.
This
Can
is
she
the
breathe?
good-
My next movie is gonna be with my name, Mr. Crispy. It's Spawn. I
Hmm.
don't think anyone watched Spawn and thought to themselves like, "All right, this is it. This is the best comic book movie I'm ever gonna watch. This is the dawn of a new era." All right, it's
Even
such
as a kid, I watched it and I was like, this is crap.
yeah. That's how I felt. Like
Yeah.
I find I don't know if you guys ever watched interviews with Michael J. White. I think he's a great person, great martial artist, not an
Mhm.
actor.
Mhm.
At least not back then he wasn't. He's
Mhm.
probably a little better now. But every time I watch the freaking transformation scene of him turning into Spawn, I just felt like this is a freaking badass superhero. That like we didn't have a badass superhero until that moment, you
Mhm.
know. And granted, yes, we had the Tim Burton Batmans, we had the Christopher Reeve Supermans, but they never felt like this. You know,
Mhm.
this was a dope ass mofo, you know, when he
Yeah.
and
Gritty.
everything. Yeah. Like and when he turned like his cloak cape turned into like the bike shield and stuff. Like it's not great CGI effects by any means today's day and age, but
Mhm.
back then, that was some cool shit.
Yeah.
It was so dope.
I do really like the transformation, and especially around that era, you didn't get a lot of good transformations in movies, right? Like we've seen some cool ones with like werewolves, but they've also done a lot of bad ones as werewolves.
Yeah.
With superheroes, we didn't really see that. And like you said, we had Tim Burton's Batman, but it wasn't like he ever transformed,
No.
right?
You
He
had a lot
just
of these. Whoosh,
yeah, the
whoosh,
stiff neck, but like
you
yeah, but he just
know?
like had his costume on. You didn't see like the anguish that the character was getting when they were transforming. Like there was an emotional appeal that you saw with the character. So Spawn had some cool visual elements. Like there was some cool things to it, kind of, but overall the movie was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
Completely understood why we never got a sequel. It shouldn't have gotten a sequel. I get it.
No, and I agree with you with the fact is like I feel in movies when you do get an aesthetically good looking transformation that doesn't look choppy or over CGI'd or anything like that, it stands out in the movie. I mean, even though it's a good movie on its own, what's one of the big highlights of A Werewolf in Paris? It's the transformation into a
Hmm.
In
werewolf
London.
that
In London.
fully stands out. You know, we did an episode of like dark children's movie. And Pinocchio, even though it's animated, but that transformation into
Hmm.
into a
The
donkey,
donkey.
that stands out the way that transformation was done.
Yeah.
So in this case, like, this was one of the few things in this movie that was done very well. That hopefully, if they do plan on rebooting it, they kind of look at that and say, like, that worked. Let's keep that.
Hmm. Yeah. The only thing you would keep.
Yeah. Well, and the clown. Clown
Yeah,
wasn't bad.
I did like Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super happy when he did get casted because I was like, yay, like, more Latino representation. And John Leguizamo was always like our first one into mainstream A-list movies, right? Consistently, I should say, that kept popping up in this stuff. So I was excited to see him, and he gave it his all, as his performance in The Clown. But no,
No.
no, overall, just a movie.
I'm gonna go with the opening scene for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones.
Hmm. Okay.
All right.
Very bad movie, but I have to say the opening scene on it is actually pretty strong, and it felt very indie when you're watching it. It
Hmm.
had the charisma, the charm, all of those aspects that you get from an indie movie with the indie type action, all at the start.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the movie completely fell apart after that and just got worse
Hmm.
and worse. But that opening scene, I remember when I was watching it, I got hyped. I'm like, when we started that, like, oh, here we go. Indy's back. We
Yeah.
got this Indy movie. Everything's cool. And then it was just like disappointment after disappointment. So, I have gone back and just watched the opening scene like on YouTube and like pretend that that's all there was. It was a short movie that was done. And it's just that opening scene. But like, oh wow, that Crystal Skull short was pretty good. Uh but it's like if for the new one, if they can take what they were able to do in that opening scene and just kind of apply that to the movie as a whole, that feeling, that atmosphere, that charm that was in those first few minutes of the first one, they can apply that to the full movie in the new one, I would be fully on board. Even though my confidence isn't at a high now because of what we got for the rest of Crystal Skull.
I like Kate Blanchett in it. I love Kate Blanchett as an actress. I'm already biased. I think she is just phenomenal in everything that she does. I liked her in the movie, but that monkey scene just completely negates anything good about that movie. That is just, it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I can't remember the last time I've seen it. I've seen the first 3 indie movies. Oof, I can't even guess how many times I've seen them. It's been so many times, at least 50 times, I'd say. That third one, I mean that fourth one, I mean, maybe twice. It's awful, man. That opening scene was really cool though. So I give you that. It was really cool. It's such a shame because it was even Spielberg that did that one. And my biggest gripe that I had with that movie, which doesn't make any sense because I hate it when the writing takes away the ideology that you established. And with that one is in the
I
Last
agree.
Crusade, right? The last one in the Last Crusade, you gave us the Holy Grail, which establishes Catholicism, right? With God and Jesus. But then in the fourth one, you gave us aliens, which goes against that. And it just doesn't. So now you're giving us aliens, but then you establish Catholicism. Like it just doesn't make, you completely contradicted yourself. And that's like in Shark Tank, I'm out.
Well, I guess I was the genius on this one. I didn't watch that movie.
Mm,
I saw a
good for
bad
you.
trailer and I was like, no, I'm gonna skip out on this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I have seen that opening scene actually. It was on
Yeah.
a compilation of something I was watching for reviewing for like movie reviewers, and they talked about that. So I got to see a bit of it. I was like, oh, that almost looks good.
Keep it on that.
Yeah.
Almost.
You
Yeah.
don't need to see any further. You're good.
No.
You
Yeah.
saw the movie, the good of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
All right. So I was gonna go Star Wars Episode 1 with the Darth Maul fight scene, just because that scene is so badass, but I felt like that one's so predictable and everybody went with that one. So I went with Jurassic Park 3 and the pterodactyl scene where they're in the where they're in the cage of the pterodactyls and they're that scene is really cool. It's really scary. How you have is very foggy. The visual element, it felt very horrific, like very much horror elements of it, where you didn't know where the pterodactyl was coming from. You can hear them. Um, you're on the parachutes as it's coming in and attacking. It was a really cool visual element and very scary. The rest of that movie was so bad. And anything you tell me that was good about it, the talking velociraptor trumps everything else. Like I referenced that so many times because nobody can ever tell me that movie was good because it had a talking velociraptor. But damn, that pterodactyl scene was actually pretty cool. I thought about doing Jurassic Park 2 with the hanging trailer, with the 2 T-Rexes, but Jurassic Park 2, that's not fair because Jurassic Park 2 had some other cool scenes in it. Jurassic Park 3 was just awful all around, but that pterodactyl scene was pretty cool.
That's definitely a movie I don't revisit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've seen it like twice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you talking about, it's like, oh, so yeah, I guess cut everything else out. That one moment
Mm-hmm.
it is pretty cool. Like, yeah, there's definitely, if you're living in that situation, it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like more
Yeah.
terrifying than the other moments that you get in the movie.
Yeah. Because everything else felt so fake and safe. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel very scary. That one was like, oh my God, if you were actually in that moment, that'd be terrifying.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
not getting away.
yeah, exactly. I'm not getting away. I can't see anything, and I'm stuck on a parachute. I'm flying, and I'm in their domain. Like I can't, and there's that one shot where it's on the bridge and it's foggy, and that little boy's walking, and you can't see anything, and then you see the pterodactyl walking out of the fog. Like that was a scary element, visual.
I'm gonna be honest. I've watched that movie once
Mm-hmm.
only because I never felt the need to revisit it. So I actually I forgot about that scene because when I think Jurassic Park, I think talking dinosaur. That's what pops out. But as you were describing it, some of the imagery came back, and I can see why because it's such the tension building that you
Mm-hmm.
get from that situation. Why that would be a great scene. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you can do that, why can't you apply that to the rest of the movie?
The best thing about Jurassic Park 1, there's so many great things about it, but Spielberg knew how to get some horror elements into Jurassic Park 1 that we just didn't get in a lot of the other Jurassic Park, especially Jurassic World. We didn't get, it doesn't feel like a horror movie at all. Jurassic Park had a lot of cool elements where it did. For Jurassic Park 3, that was the only scene that felt horrifying. Everything else just didn't. And that's just, you need to have more than that. So overall, how do you guys feel like regarding these, talking about these great scenes and bad moments? Like, do you guys see it as just like a sort of like a blip, just like a great moment blip? Like, where did that come from?
I mean, yeah, it always stands out as a shocking thing. It's just like, man, I've been watching a lot of crap for the past like 40 minutes. Where was this little gold nugget hiding?
Yeah. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always makes me wonder. It was just like if you were able to come up with a scene that hits that well throughout it, like why couldn't you again apply that to the rest of it? Like what were you thinking in the moment when you created this scene that you completely forgot about for every scene after and every scene like before that? Like
Mm-hmm.
what was behind it? That's what it makes me wonder because those scenes make you see potential that was never realized in that movie, and that makes it beyond just being a bad movie, it makes it a disappointing movie.
Yes, it does
Yeah.
make it disappointing because clearly there was some talent there. And that's what gets frustrating. Where like even the example that I used with Wonderlust, like if you had Paul Rudd that just crushed this, this improv scene, maybe most of the movie should have been improv then. we would have gotten some more original stuff here because clearly you had something. With Jurassic Park 3, maybe you should have stepped away from the whole safe of what you thought we wanted for Jurassic Park 1 and 2, and you should have gave us a real horrifying element. So I totally get that. So let's hit them. What's on the queue? What's a bad movie with a great scene that you want to recommend to our audience?
I'm gonna go with one that I didn't get to mention here. I'm gonna go with Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Hmm.
I'll go
Oof,
with that.
man,
It's a
that's a bad one.
movie that
Okay.
wasn't really good, but that ending scene with Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy at the end, that scene was unexpected viewership wise compared to what we had seen already before. And it was just so well done
Mhm.
and something that allowed them to then touch on even more in the last Spider-Man that came out. So I definitely recommend checking that one out for that scene.
Good call, man.
Yeah.
Electro, I hated how they did Electro in that movie, but
Yeah.
I kind of liked how they gave him some, they brought him back a little bit with the other Spider-Man movie.
I'm gonna have to go with one I also didn't get to talk about, which is the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a good movie, but if you want to see some of the best looking apes, like people ape things or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. There's no denying that those apes look great. Tim Roth as the captain or whatever nails it. I
Mm-hmm.
can watch his performance as the ape forever.
I was gonna say that. I was like, Tim Roth in it was great.
Yeah,
He was great in it. I
yeah,
love Tim
him,
Roth though.
Michael Clark Duncan, like
Yeah.
they crushed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's one that I didn't get to talk about. Suicide Squad. The
Which
opening,
one?
the
I was
first
like,
one.
what's
Okay.
The
the good
first one.
scene? Okay,
Just the opening. The character openings were pretty cool. I like
okay,
seeing that. So
That was good.
audience, watch the opening about the first 10, 15 minutes. You could stop it
yeah,
after that. But the opening character moments, super dope. You gave us so much about the characters in such a little amount of time that it was done very masterfully almost because in film, you want to tell us about the characters without having to explain it. If you can give us a visual element within the first 15 seconds of introducing a character, even if you use a moment of dialogue, and you can paint us exactly who this character is, you did an amazing job. And that movie set us up very well. Much like the trailer, you set us up to knock us down.
I was about to say, when you said
Yeah.
Suicide Squad, I thought you were going to be like, the one scene was the first trailer. That's all you need to watch.
Yeah, pretty much, man. But thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, everything on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please follow us, like us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I'm your host. Don't mind the rest. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I am not the host. Bye-bye, Cyclops. And you can see me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
And I'm still the other guy, Mr. Crispy, at Nicolopolis. You can follow me anywhere Nicolopolis is sold.